newsbronx.info. This is the final debate between the candidates in this race. It is the third and final debate. We welcome the candidates to join us. The incumbent is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Nice to have you with us. And also former MSNBC anchor Michelle Caruso Cabrera. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure.
And Badran Khan, thank you for joining us. We appreciate all three of you for being here. Sam Sloan also on the ballot. He is not here with us tonight. Candidates, it's relatively simple. We were together on BronxNet television in the past. We're going to use some of the same theories and same policies that we've done before. I will address a question to one candidate. That candidate will respond, and then we will have a free-flowing dialogue between the candidates with the original respondent getting an opportunity to have the final word on that question, and then we'll also have closing statements. We should thank the Golden Palace for allowing us to use this facility. We should tell the audience there is no studio audience at all. It's just the camera crews that are here, as well as the candidates and the moderator. Also, Sheikh Musa Drama from the Parkchester Times did yeoman's work to put this very important program together, and BronxNet Television also gets credit because they're here and they will be broadcasting this program. I know all the candidates, whether they agree or not on issues, would agree that everybody who's eligible in the 14th Congressional District should get out and vote on June 23rd. So by prior agreement, let's do opening statements so each candidate can introduce themselves, and the first one will be Ms. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Good evening. This is Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. 2 years ago, our community made history in many different ways. One, by supporting a grassroots campaign that sent me to Congress as the youngest woman in American history to serve in the United States House of Representatives. But also to support a progressive campaign that was funded by everyday people and continues to be funded by everyday people to this day. I'm proud to say that in the 2 years since, I have been one of the most active members in the entire New York City congressional delegation, hosting over 200 events, hosting and attending over 200 events, 17 town halls, introducing dozens of pieces of legislation, 11 of which have passed and even signed by the president. I'm proud to have served this community, bringing billions of dollars, making hundreds of thousands of constituent calls in this crisis during COVID, and championing issues like healthcare as a human right with Medicare for All, by championing issues like housing as a right, and the investment in the rehabilitation and revitalization of NYCHA. All of this and more is one of the reasons why we're here to say that we're just getting started. And I'm extraordinarily excited for us to continue on that journey and make sure that we come together to not only go back to Congress, but to make sure that we also defeat Republicans in November. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next opening statement will be by Ms. Khan, and I neglected to introduce you properly at the outset of the program. So let's just make sure that people know that you are a mother and the controller at Sobro and president of the Jalalabad Association.
I'm a former president.
Former president, okay, sorry. But we got it accurate. We know that you have many important associations. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. I hope everybody's safe. My name is Badran Khan. I decided to run over a year ago because I felt my district itself is actually suffering with no jobs. Medical insurance is a problem. NYCHA housing is also an issue. And I felt like in the last 2 years, we're still suffering with all the issues that we have. It's still going on. And as everyone knows, the epicenter of the epicenter was my District 14. So I decided to run in that fact because I've been here 22 years. I'm with the community. I grew up with the community, and I've also been president of an association that has 14,000 members that's split between Queens and the Bronx. And I want to support the universal basic income, which I think that's what we need right now currently, and to be permanent, $1,000 for every adult citizen. I also want to talk about certain issues that we still have immigration issues. We have housing issues. That's why the reason with the COVID-19 hit was so tough, it was because of the housing issue. When people are walking down the streets, they don't have anywhere to isolate. So I'm here to run for my community and to make sure we have all these issues to come up front. And the saddest part, what happened to George Floyd, as I said, we need equality, and that's what we don't have in our community. So here today, I'm here to introduce myself. My name is Badran Khan. I'm a community activist, I'm a community member, and I have 2 children who actually grew up in these 2 communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Michelle Caruso Cabrera, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Gary, for hosting this again. It's a real honor and a pleasure to be here. I'm Michelle Caruso Cabrera, and I am so honored to ask for your vote on June 23rd in the Democratic primary. I'm a former journalist, and I'm pleased to be here. I'm so pleased to see that you are here, AOC, because you did try to get out of this multiple times, and I'm not surprised because you would clearly be embarrassed by your record. You voted against your community. You voted against $75 billion for hospitals. You voted against $25 billion for coronavirus testing and against hundreds of billions of dollars for jobs. And at the height of the crisis, when our community was dying, you didn't come home, even though Congress wasn't in session.
That's false.
You stayed in your luxury apartment and didn't come home. You claim you were sick, but you hosted dozens of, webinars and teletown halls.
Dozens, that's also false.
Instagram posts. Please be assured
We'll give you an opportunity.
that while AOC was MIA, MCC will always be at your side. Unlike AOC, I will have a constituent services office in the Bronx, actually in the district. Hers is outside the district. People who live in the Bronx who are represented by her have to leave the district to go talk to someone. I will open a constituent services office day 1, hours posted, and I myself will hold constituent services. I will be the chief constituent services officer, and I will speak with people face to face, not on Twitter, but to my community and to my constituents. I look forward to always voting in your interests and not working against you. The choice is clear. With AOC, you get divisiveness, polarization. With me, unity, working together. I will work with Nancy Pelosi, not against her. I will help Governor Cuomo, not work against him like AOC does. With MCC, I will always be at your side. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Did you want to clear up if you say there are some...
There were several
that you want to
misstatements.
clarify, please do, and we can do that to begin.
There were several patently false misstatements. Has been a common strain. Ms. Caruso Cabrera is actually obsessed with 6 days in March in which I genuinely was not feeling well during COVID and decided to stay home for 6 days. And in those 6 days that I had to stay in Washington, I'm proud to say that I continued to march forward and host town halls and continue to do things from my home, from our community. But it was 6 days. And in that time during COVID, I stayed here. I've been rooted here in the Bronx. And during that time, I've made my team has made over 200,000 constituent check-in calls, over 3,000 bags of groceries hand delivered to our community. I've raised almost $1 million, $850,000 in more than frankly, I won't even go there, but I've raised almost $1 million in direct services to our community. And moreover, for a woman who contends about who's from this community or not, Ms. Caruso Cabrera has lived in Trump Tower until 6 months ago and never stepped foot in New York's 14th congressional district, aside from maybe a dinner here or there. And I think it's important for you to ask yourself, to look at her and ask yourself, have I seen this woman before she decided to run for Congress? Additionally, she's been a registered Republican virtually her entire life. She is financed by Trump donors and financed by Trump advisors. Be careful.
Presumably
So
want to
you
respond.
said-
One second, then Ms. Khan, if you want to, and then we'll begin with questioning.
You campaigned that your predecessor didn't drink our water, didn't breathe our air, and didn't educate his children here. And yet you described yourself, and during those 6 days, as staying home, right? Because you stayed home in Washington when people were dying. You promised to be present. That is pure hypocrisy, what you did.
And
the
I am-
$850,000 that you have raised, it's the least you could do after throwing away $27 billion in tax revenue, which is, imagine if we had that tax revenue now. I changed my registration before you did, and you were living in Westchester when you did it.
Excuse me.
Your whole Bronx tale is exactly that. It's a tale.
Thank
So,
you.
and let me be clear, I live in Sunnyside, Queens, and I love it.
Now?
I know Queens very,
So you
very
could
well.
run,
Okay,
girl.
Let's let Ms. Khan respond, and then we'll begin the formal questioning. Go ahead.
I just have to say, I moved there in 1998. I've been in this district for such a long time. I know where the schools are. I know the best restaurants where they are. I live in this district. This is my home. And I just want to say to the people out there, I'm the real Democrat here. I believe in my people, and I think my people need help. And I know, Ms. Cabrera, you said that you live in Sunnyside. You just recently moved to Sunnyside, I believe so, correct? And also with all your donors, and also want to clear, I'm a grassroots campaign. I take donations only from my district that they're coming in. People who are Uber driver, grocery driver, from Sunnyside, from Parkchester. And I just want to be clear with that. As a person, as an individual, I'm here for the people. I work for the people. I do want to ask you a question, Ms. Congressman, real quick. Can I?
Well,
I mean, don't, or just
you
say
can
something?
ask it, but it may come up later. but-
Okay, so we could, yeah, do.
And if not, I'm sure we can find a space for it. I'd like
Just
to
to want
move
to
it
ask you about
forward.
the jobs in our community. That's it.
Well, that certainly is on the list.
Yeah.
And I will mention to the viewers, these questions, all of the questions came from Bronx constituents in the 14th Congressional District. None of them were created by me or anybody else involved in the media. So this truly is the voice of the people asking candidates who are running for office. By our original agreement, Ms. Ocasio-Cortez gets the first one. The Bronx is known worldwide with the attributes of number one in all things bad and last for all things good. Number one, how do you plan to change this? And then accordingly, what do you think needs to be done to fix the disparities in wealth and health that exist among racial groups, especially in the Bronx?
Thank you very much. You know, my dad was born here in the South Bronx when the Bronx was burning. And this was at a time when landlords set their own buildings on fire with families inside in order to collect the health insurance. In order to collect building insurance. And, you know, at the heart of that, when the entire borough was razed down, we've had to rebuild from then. And at the heart of that issue was the core value of putting profit over the value of human beings and lives. And really that is why we have been championing solutions like healthcare as a human right, as outlaid by single-payer healthcare and Medicare for all. Ensuring that we close the scourge in our district that is Rikers Jail, and making sure that black and brown bodies are not disproportionately incarcerated. I'm also proud to say that I'm independent and not financed by the prison industrial complex. One of the things that I think is important for us to also talk about is jobs, which is why I support a federal jobs guarantee, as well as the creation of jobs with the Green New Deal, which is projected to create almost 20 million jobs at least nationwide. I'm proud to say that those jobs should not be meager jobs that do not pay a living wage, but dignified living wage jobs, which is why I support both the right to unionize and also the right the right to a living wage, which nationally should be at least $15 an hour, and perhaps in New York City higher, to accommodate the extraordinarily high cost of living from rent to food.
Thank you very much. Presumably others want to comment on that. Ms. Khan, you're welcome to comment on that. We're talking about disparities in wealth and health and other important issues.
Well, I remember in 1988, right here, the co-ops in Parkchester, people actually had to leave them because the crime rate was so hard. People were having a hard time living there, and it was not the best place. Bronx was always like, oh, we don't want to live in the Bronx. But you know, A lot of community came in and they built the Bronx. What is today the Bronx? We need to build more. We need to build more jobs in the Bronx. We need to find more small businesses in the Bronx. That's what I'm looking into, because when I walk down Westchester Avenue, when I walk to East End Avenue, all these stores are closed because we don't have enough funding for them. We need more funding to come out here, and we need to bring jobs into our community, especially minority women also have a big limitation for them to go when there are people migrating from different countries. That's what I dream of the Bronx. Because when I remember in 1988 to now, it's been growing as a community. People are moving into the Bronx. We need more affordable housing. We need to make sure people are come here and are safe. That's what I'm looking for to do in the Bronx, because 20 years ago you couldn't do that. 10 years ago was hard. We need more protection for our community, and that's what I'm trying to do. Jobs is the way, and education is another thing, because most of our schools don't have enough special education. That's what I'm looking for to do, and fund more after-school program. That's what we don't have in the Bronx.
Thank you very much, Ms. Caruso Cabrera.
I'm pleased to see that AOC is finally talking about jobs, because she hasn't for a long time. Number one, job creation is extremely important. We have got to get people back to work as soon as it is safe. When I walk the streets of the district and I see the modern day bread lines, and I talk to people who are in those bread lines, and they ask me, when is it going to be safe to go back to work? When can we get back to work? They're the neediest people of our community, the neediest of our neighbors. They worked in kitchens, waiting tables, washing dishes, doing nails, cleaning homes, and they are desperate because of the economic crisis. And we have to do everything possible to help our neighbors get back to work. So unlike AOC, I would never have voted against hundreds of billions of dollars for the Paycheck Protection Program, which would help people get paid and get back to work. I would never throw away 25,000 jobs that would be so great to have right now, that she's still so proud of. And as far as affordable housing, we have to say yes to it, but she has walked away from it. There's a project, Sunnyside Yards, that the city is thinking about and has really put forward a great plan for a framework of what we might do with empty space. 12,000 affordable housing units, real affordable housing units. But AOC walked away. She's supposed to sit on the advisory committee for that, and she left. How is she supposed to represent our community when she won't sit at the table? Because AOC is always MIA, polarizing, divisive. She leaves the table rather than bringing people together. We need unity. We need to sit down and talk with people, not walk away. That's what you get with me. Unity and coming together. With her, it's divisiveness. AOC is bad for the Times, she's bad for New York, and she's really bad for our neighborhoods.
Thank you very much. You get the final word, Ms. Ocasio-Cortez.
Thank you so much. You know, I'm proud to protect our community from rising rents and real estate speculation that's designed to push us out instead of including us in the continued prosperity of our community. As anyone can tell you, and this is just one of the things you know, it just goes to show, you know, Ms. Caruso Cabrera is talking about how she lives in Sunnyside. She should know how vocally opposed our community has been in ringing the sound bells around this project. Almost every single elected official on this project has left the advisory committee over severe concerns over process and how the community has been listened to during this time. Anyone who's from Sunnyside knows and who's been paying attention to this issue understands how problematic what she just said is. Thank you.
Anybody who's seen Sunnyside Yards knows there's nothing there. It's an empty space, but you would
And
know
that's also
because
a
you're
toxic
MIA.
Superfund site that will give people cancer if you let them live on it without proper conditions.
And it's too expensive to do that.
Thank you.
It's the funding is too expensive, but I wanted a train line there to go in. That's what should go in
It
there.
also
That's
includes a
what we should
train
do.
station, which
We
has
wanna
been
put the train
promised to
station in
Queens
there.
for 30 years.
And that is totally fine. That's totally
But you walked
fine.
away. You're not even at the table.
No,
How
no,
would you even
no,
know?
No.
Yeah. You left.
You know what?
Let's-
Like,
let's-
you know, I think we
let's-
should be here to actually talk about policies instead of like, well, let's do about policy.
policy. This
No,
is
no,
where
but this
we
is a
live.
policy, but we said the
This is
Sunnyside
policy.
Sunnyside needs a train station. That should be, because that area is very toxic. To put the funding in that area will be very expensive. It will hurt us. I do want affordable housing. There are other projects, but we don't want to hurt our people who live around that neighborhood. I'm for making sure that we have a train station there, and if we put in, I don't think any real estate want to put so much funding in that project because how it would be harmful. I'm a Sunnyside resident, and I know what Sunnyside is. I would love if that area could be built, but you know what? In order to build it, we have to make sure whoever was taking that part, how much it's going to cost is too much money to cost for someone to come in.
And
because that
she
is-
walked away. And she walked away from the table. She's not at the table.
Timeline is 100 years. 100 years. Listen, if you don't want to take my word for it, take the word of almost every other elected official in the area. When everyone is saying that this process is unjust and everyone is on the same page, that is a very
is
rare
not true.
thing
There
to
are
happen.
So
many-
why can't we talk
Let's,
about the transportation in there? Why can't we
let's-
do, if you're saying that she's not sitting, I would ask you, why can't we sit and see if we could build a transport? Because you know, the 7 train is overly packed.
Yes,
And we
it
need more
is.
infrastructure in the 7 train, which I've been we don't even have people to go, we have to go to 48th Street to get an elevator for the wheelchair access.
Exactly. So when it comes to this specific issue, that Sunnyside Yards board is the EDC, the Economic Development Corporation, which does not oversee Amtrak access and does not oversee train access. But now my office does agree with that point, which is why we have been in conversation with Amtrak and state authorities about how we can build out public access to transportation in Sunnyside and throughout Queens.
So are you sitting, like Ms. Caruso said, are you not sitting? Are you sitting with, we want to make
At
sure.
the table
What
with
I'd
the
like to
We need
appropriate
to get that table,
authorities.
because you know what, as a Sunnyside resident, we're having a lot of difficulty using
Yes,
transportation.
and we
And
are
we
at
want to
that
sit with
table.
everybody we can. It's
Candidates-
not about, sorry.
That's okay. What I'd like to do, though, I'm sure people of the Bronx are very sympathetic to what's going on in Sunnyside, but of course, we're here in Parkchester, and I'd like to bring it back to the borough of
We
the
are-
Bronx. I
yes,
think it's
okay.
only fair. So let's go to the next question, will be for you, Ms. Khan. We all know what's going on out in the streets right now. What is your position in the ongoing debate about police reform? There are many angles to it. We know that the state has already repealed 50A. What's next, and what do you think? And then we'll let everybody weigh in on it.
Well, first of all, the Police Secrecy Act A was, that I'm really supportive of. But I also want to say, we have to cut budgets at the police. That's what we have to do. That's very important. But when we cut the budgets, I have to be very emphasized, where is that budget going? I don't want it to hurt people who are not officers. That's a problem. We want to make sure all these programs they had, that's not cut. When we take money or defund, because I don't want to defund all of that money we have from the police department. We have to make sure, a couple of things. Most police officers do not need guns. Most police officers need to make sure that the reform is working, and we need the police officer have at least 6 months of training. And the second thing that I think that is very important, that when we need to put more money into legal aid when people are arrested. That's not happening, and that's a very important issue. The last thing is, why are the prisoners getting 62 cents to make hand sanitizers? How are we productive? How are we making them productive when they come out after serving their time? We need to build them. We need to have better education in the system. All these programs has to be, make sure it's funded properly. That's what I'm looking for. I want every criminal reform, but I want to make sure that these people who serve their time have access to a better life after they serve the time and come out of society. And that's what's not happening right now. And I know we're closing Rikers Island that everybody's supporting, but as I asked before, when we close this Rikers Island, there's a lot of programs going to go away. Are these programs going to be able to survive in the small jails that we are opening, 5 in the boroughs? And that's a very concern for me as an individual, as people who know. I actually gave a pamphlet to someone. He said, oh, I don't know if I could vote because, I serve my time, I don't have a job. And that's what we need to focus on. When we take money out of the police station, these money needs to put into reforms, education, in the jail system. We need to make sure they're giving it to the prisoners who actually make 62 cents. They need to make minimum wage. We need to build hope for these people to come out and actually survive the society. That's what I'm looking to do about the funds.
Thank you very much. Ms. Caruso Cabrera, you can have the next whack at that.
Criminal justice reform is long overdue, and I am so pleased that we are finally, perhaps on the verge of landmark legislation to try to begin to right some of the decades of inequities that were never justified and have never been rectified. To watch the murder of George Floyd horrified everyone in this country, and it's galvanized us and created a moment where we can all come together and do something real. We've started to see it at the state level, we're seeing it at the city level, and if I were in Congress right now, I would be working very closely with Nancy Pelosi, the Congressional Black Caucus, to move forward with the legislation that they have put forth to try to address some of these major issues. It's not going to be enough. We need to get to the heart of why what happened to George Floyd happened. Why would an officer hold his knee, use his knee as a weapon for as long as he did? What was going through his heart? What was going through his mind, his head? That's what we have to get to the bottom of. More training, more involvement in communities so that there's a real dialogue. Things have to change, and we're on the verge of real change, and I would be proud to champion that and help Nancy Pelosi get this legislation through Congress. My opponent, AOC, constantly works against Nancy Pelosi. She voted against the stimulus bill, the only Democrat to do so. Her first day in Congress, she entered a protest in Nancy Pelosi's office. That is not how you get things done. That's not how you work with people. We have to have unity, especially right now. Aren't you tired of the divisiveness? That's what she represents. We need unity right now. And that's what I hope to bring.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ocasio-Cortez.
Well, if there's anything that this moment has shown us, it has been the power of protest and the power of direct action. And which is why I'm proud to say that I support those frontline activists here that are pushing for reforms and pushing in the direction of defund, in which we mean supporting the demands of communities on the ground to remove $1 billion of the $6 billion NYPD budget and to put that $1 billion into community services, educational, youth, housing, homelessness services that can help prevent crime in the first place. This is a very simple demand. It is one that we have to make sure that can be met safely and justly. And it can be done quite simply. One is that right now New York City has a commitment to replace every single retiring officer on a one-by-one level. We do not even make that same explicit commitment for teachers. So I think it's important to show that we can make these reforms without destroying families and by making sure that our communities are safe. I support the state repeal of 50A. I support the end of transferring of military equipment from the United States military to often undertrained local police departments. And I also support the end of qualified immunity. And I'm also very proud to say that I am impartial and that this is coming from an objective position of listening to the community, unlike frankly Michelle Caruso Cabrera, who has been endorsed by the PBA, and frankly the Sergeants Benevolent Association threatened the mayor's daughter. I mean, this is a very serious situation that we have to make sure that we are objective about and that we are not doing political favors and that we are making sure that we have our constituents' best opportunities in mind.
This is not about political favors.
So you're saying
we need to sit at the table with everyone. Police reform needs to happen, and you've got to sit with the police to make that happen.
So I just have
Ms.
so you're
Khan
saying
gets the final word on
yeah.
this.
So
Thank
I
you.
just want to say that with the budget cuts, are we going to put it into other just education? And I wanted to put it in the prison system. That's what I want to do. Let's do education in the prison system, because you know what? People are arrested. People don't get enough training in there, and they come back, they go back into the crime. We need to put more funding in that. 600 cops, I believe, is retiring. So the budgets of their salaries pretty much higher. So we have that funds. We need to allocate the budget properly so that we don't lose. If we take it out, we don't lose the non-officers. We don't lose all these programs. We want to make sure these programs are emphasized and more training on these programs. And you know what? We need to make sure our police department needs to get more training than 6 months. And not every police officer, as I said, needs to go everywhere. We need to make sure we have that allocation done properly. I'm sorry, I'm a financial controller. I think about budgets all the time, so we need to budget it properly.
All right, thank you very much. The next question for you, Ms. Caruso Cabrera. What are your priorities for the needs of the 14th Congressional District? And then along with it, these were two questions we combined. Which candidate has the best feel and understanding of the needs of the people of the 14th Congressional District?
So, at the beginning of the crisis, I immediately started bringing food to our frontline workers, handing out masks, thousands and thousands of masks to the elderly, to the neediest, 100 gallons of hand sanitizer. And I saw with my own eyes what was happening on the ground as I did that. The desperation, the people in line at Elmhurst Hospital, the people in line at food pantry after food pantry who are so worried about how they are going to make ends meet, how are they going to pay the rent, how are they going to feed their families. And that interaction has really shown me what is so necessary. Priorities for me, getting people back to work as soon as it is safe, doing everything I can to bring jobs to New York 14. Also, restoring more federal dollars to our public health system. Our hospitals, our public hospitals, are teetering right now because they suffered so much, so dramatically during COVID. And also, unity. We have got to work together in the Democratic Party. We cannot have the divisiveness that we have had for the last 2 years. Those are my priorities, and it shows a very clear difference between me and AOC, because when the crisis started, she didn't come home, even though she promised she would be present. She stayed in her luxury apartment for 6 days, even though Congress wasn't in session, and she couldn't see what I saw. She said people shouldn't go back to work. If she had seen what I had seen with people in our modern day breadlines, she would never have said anything like that, and she would never have voted against $75 billion for our hospitals at the moment of the greatest time of crisis. I will be somebody who works for the people, not against our community. She was the only Democrat to vote against that bill because she wants her name in the headlines. She likes to be in the spotlight. I have no such desire. I want to work with Nancy Pelosi to make sure that when we have the necessary legislation that needs to be put forth, I will not be grandstanding like AOC does all the time.
Thank you very much. Okay, Ms. Khan is next, and then Ms. Ocasio-Cortez.
So, as a community activist, I don't have the celebrity status as anyone else. What I did is I actually worked with the people of my community. I worked with the mosque, I worked with the churches, and tried to distribute food to everyone. You know, the sad part is when you see the lines and you see about 4,000 people on the lines. That was heartbreaking. I don't have a lot of funds like people, so what I did, I asked family and friends, can you donate to me or donate to this cause? Donate to this. That's what I look for. I called people up if they need food. I called people to deliver food in their house. I had a 62-year-old woman who called me. She lived in Brooklyn, not even in my district. She was crying because she couldn't get out of bed because she needed food because she just got chemo. So what I did, I have groups of people who worked, and I called them up. I'm like, can you please take food to this person? Even though she's not in my district. It's humanity. It's not about who's right, who's wrong. That's what I'm looking for. With the application of the SBA, I have called everyone and anyone who I knew to do the application. I'm like, you know what, I called every small businesses in Jackson Heights, in East Elmhurst, who I know, in the Bronx. I'm like, the printers, the salons. I'm like, please apply. We'll see if you don't get it. On that Friday, I called every bank, and no bank actually answered the phone, which was so sad, that I'm trying to get my community to get help. Doesn't matter where you're from, it doesn't matter where you are. We wanted my district to get help. So as an individual, I'm here to help the community. I want to stand for my community, and I work with everyone to make sure. Doesn't matter who you are. If I have to work with Ms. Ocasio, I have to work with Ms. Cabrera. We need help for our District 14 right now. And I'm worried that the second wave is going to hit us soon. And you know what? We need to prepare for the second wave because East Elmhurst Hospital cannot take all of this, the illness that we have. What are we preparing? We need to make sure we have masks. We need to make sure we have ventilators. We need to make sure all of these are having. We need the funds to come. And I actually want to say, the Congresswoman is here, make sure we get funds to the hands of the people. Not everyone gotten the $1,200. As you as a Congress, my question is, why have my people not gotten the money? There's people who still waiting. The older people are waiting. They have not got their check. So we need to have one fund to bail out the people, make sure they're in people's hand, because I have tried and I Googled it, I went into the text, where is their money? And as an individual, I want people to know I will work for the community, I am from the community, and I work for each and every one of the community.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ocasio-Cortez.
Yes, well, much has been made about this initial opposition to the first wave of legislative relief. And the reason I wasn't opposed to it is because I actually read the bill. And we could see in the bill what the problems were going to be. We could see that the $1,200 was not going to get there in time. We could see that PPP was broken in a way that small business owners were going to struggle. We could see that undocumented families and mixed status families were cut out of critical legislation that impacts our district and critical relief that impacts our district the most. In fact, there was so much that was left out, including state and local, that even Governor Cuomo was opposed to and called it a bad package. So that is why we went to that negotiating table and we came back with the HEROES Act, which I proudly voted for. And in the HEROES Act, we got those three things. I was able to help form a coalition that secured three things, and it took a fight. It did, because ultimately there are extremely conservative Democrats that might as well be Republican, and there are progressive champions in the House. In fact, there was a Democrat who became a Republican earlier this year. And so what we have to do is that it's going to take some disagreement, but we got those three things. We got PPP expansion and a change in the ratios so that our small businesses could spend money on rent without being disqualified in addition to payroll. We got ITINs included in the HEROES Act so that undocumented taxpayers can get access to critical key relief. And third, we got the key state and local funding that's necessary to make sure that our state and our city does not go bankrupt. Now, when it comes to the priorities in the district, it lines up quite well. We have the charge right now where we can make tens of thousands of jobs right here in New York City. And I've introduced legislation around public housing that does just that. In revitalizing our public housing stock, we can create tens of thousands of jobs for our constituents and our folks right here. And in fact, when it came to the rollout of the initial Green New Deal, I'm proud to say that I had over 100 co-sponsors in the House of Representatives. Secondly is healthcare, and particularly public hospitals. Our public hospitals, like Jacobi Medical Center, are being slammed right now. And we have to make sure that in this profiteering and frankly all of
So
the
why did you vote
corporate
against
and
it?
Wall
Why did
Street
you vote
looting
against
that are
$75
that's
billion
going
for
on
hospitals?
right now? And the corporate looting, speaking of which, it's an excellent question. The reason I voted against it is because while it had $1 billion here or $1 billion there for our hospitals, it had $500 billion for the same type of Wall Street fat cats that financed Ms. Caruso Cabrera's campaign. So because I stood up against it, perhaps
My
that's why she's
supporters
so
believe
bothered
in
by the
jobs
fact
and job
that I stood
creation.
up for
Let her
that.
finish and we'll give you an opportunity.
So lastly, the last thing that we have to make sure that we focus on in addition to jobs, housing, including education, like tuition-free public colleges and universities, is ensuring that we have robust immigrant rights, whether it's combating Islamophobia and repealing the Muslim ban, or making sure that we demilitarize ICE and defund it after allegations of sexual assault of children, that they are sexually assaulting kids, and we aren't getting justice, and continuing to fund these corrupt agencies is wrong. It is absolutely wrong.
Ms. Caruso Cabrera, you get the final word.
You kept
here.
referring to we. You were the only Democrat to vote against that bill. You pretend like you care. Just now you pretended like you care, but you don't, because you work against our community. You voted against $75 billion for hospitals at the height of the crisis, and you're still proud of it, and you claim it's because you care. That is an insult to every other member of the Democratic Party who voted for that bill. You claim to care so much about immigrants. We are a community filled with immigrants, and yet you drive away jobs. You vote against money for jobs. You don't care about immigrants. You say you do, but your actions are always against your constituents. And You work against Nancy Pelosi. You work against Governor Cuomo. You don't support Joe Biden. We need unity
I'm
right
on the
now.
Unity Task Force for Vice President Biden.
Are you going to vote for him? Are you
Yes,
going to vote for
absolutely.
him? Are you, on this primary, are you going to vote for Joe Biden?
Excuse me, I
In the
have
primary,
said
are you gonna vote for
multiple-
Joe Biden?
I have said multiple times that I will be voting for Joe Biden.
In the primary.
It's a Democrat party. It's like everyone should vote for the Democrat right now. We need that. We need a change in our administration. I would hope, but
But she's being elusive. AOC is being
CARE Act,
elusive.
I
She
hope-
won't answer the question.
I hope the CARE Act gets people, the mom and pop stores did not get any funding. So I hope, I know you said you got the three things, but I have noticed that most, the mom and pop stores who the husband and wife are running the stores did not get any funding as
Which
of
is
now.
why I
That's
brought
my
up those
thing is, but I'm just seeing, I hope that act that comes in, that does help them because it has not, and you know what? Not these stores have the paperwork that you guys are all requiring at Congress. They need to understand it's just a simple, when they come in, they have, like say a barber shop, just to give me that example. There are 5 people in that store have chairs. These people are not getting funding. So I hope the new act, but I would say, if there is so issue with these act, why didn't you as a congressman put an extra bill out? Okay, you know what? Let's just do it differently instead of turning something down. I want the act for my people of the district, and especially the small business owners. They are suffering. They have, I don't know if they're going to be able to
In
open.
fact, I have put forward legislation along with Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal called the Paycheck Guarantee Act, which does exactly what you're talking
The
about.
Paycheck
so-
Guarantee Act, but it's not there. I have talked to everyone, even yesterday, they said a pizza store in Sunnyside in Greenpoint. They said, Ms. Khan, we didn't get anything. I'm like, get the paperwork, let's see if we can do it.
Yes, the Paycheck Guarantee Act is separate from the PPP, the
The payroll,
Protection
yeah.
Program.
Didn't get anything.
Right,
Okay.
and so the PPP is what we were standing up against and objecting to because we saw those very issues as well.
And there's still.
Candidates, let's move to the next question. Everybody wants to talk about jobs, and the next question is for you, Congresswoman. Have you regretted your position on the Amazon deal? And then, of course, which has come up a number of times here, how do we bring jobs and economic development to the 14th CD?
Well, one of the things that we saw from experts who deal in these types of huge tax subsidy boondoggles is that they don't offer return on investment. You will hear probably from many other people about this figure of 25,000 jobs, 25,000 jobs. Those jobs were not coming. Those jobs, that figure was not made by an independent assessment. It came in part from Amazon. And on top of that, those jobs were not going to people here in our community. We have a perfect experiment here because there were two that were proposed. One here in Queens and the other in Virginia, in the outskirts of Washington, D.C. That second one that went forward with a similar deal has had rents skyrocket between 15 and 20%, and people in the local community are already being displaced without getting the jobs that they were promised. So I think it's very important that we deal in facts when it comes to this issue. Now, one of the things that we had done, I think it's important for us to say, is that this was a state level deal, and I'm a member of Congress. So I was not at the negotiating table, although we do have state senators who were at the negotiating table. And what was told to us was that when we asked for these jobs to be unionized, when we asked for these warehouse worker jobs to be eligible to be unionized, Amazon said absolutely not, which means no dignified pay, which means no guarantee on work conditions. And in fact, what we're seeing right now is that Amazon just fired Chris Smalls, a black warehouse worker in Staten Island, for raising the fact that they were not meeting COVID standards, and he was fired for that type of whistleblowing and for organizing for humane conditions. If we are going to have people come into our community, they need to be good neighbors. Amazon took the position where they said take it or leave it, that they were not willing to negotiate on a single detail. And we are hearing that from our local state senators. And we have to be very wary when a huge corporation comes in, refuses to unionize their work staff, refuses to negotiate with local elected officials, and roll out billions of dollars in tax subsidies that have dubious points where experts are sounding the alarm around it. We have to be very careful about those things. And if a corporation is going to come in and try to bully our community and say take it or leave it, I believe that we should be investing that money in small businesses to be creating those tens of thousands
There's
of
no
jobs.
money. There's no money.
So we'll go around, Ms. Khan, you you had raised jobs earlier, so I'm sure you want to talk, and I know you have something to say about this issue.
You want me to go?
You can go ahead.
So with the Amazon would have brought the jobs, but my biggest thing was with rejecting Amazon, my thing was the small businesses. When any type of company comes in, I believe it brings more hope to small businesses because we live in a very diverse community of Congressional District 14. So my big issue was we returned Amazon, but how would it affect us with the small businesses? My goal is to bring companies that will provide for my community, make sure if they come in, they put infrastructure money in my community. That's the most important thing I feel like. And when a company comes, Amazon had an issue. They had a lot of issues with the way they deal with their employees. I do agree with that. But let's say beside Amazon, if somebody else come in, I will give them that opportunity to bring into because it will bring jobs. Right now we need jobs. And with that, the indirect job is I'm always concerned about. That will bring more business and value to the community. But also we have to do something with that. Make sure we have rent controlled in our neighborhood when any company comes in. We have to do the law that people cannot charge $3,000 or $4,000 because a company has come into my district. That's what a lot of the concern that we had in Congressional District 14. I'm from that neighborhood. A lot of people did agree with them coming in, but I think instead of making it so hard, we could be able to negotiate from the state level and make sure that if they come in, they put money in my infrastructure and they put money in our neighborhoods and they give opportunity to small business. If I have any company come into my district, I want to make sure I have a checklist of what they need to bring with them before I let them allow to bring jobs. And the jobs right now is investing in our small businesses.
Thank you very much, Ms. Caruso Cabrera.
A restaurant owner on Queens Boulevard said to me, wow, I was so excited when the Amazon announcement happened. Yo pensaba que iba a ser un boom. I thought we were going to have a boom. I was going to hire more wait staff. I was going to hire more kitchen staff. And then poof, it went away because of AOC. And I thought, wow, there was a huge opportunity lost. The small businesses in Sunnyside and that whole area, they want more customers. They want more clients. It's not just them. Talking to people who are in bread lines right now, who are desperate to get back to work, they say, wow, that would have brought a lot of jobs. And you know what? They really understand, okay, 25,000 tech jobs means all kinds of other jobs. Dry cleaners, restaurants, parking lot attendants. And I hear people say, oh, those aren't good jobs. Those are great jobs. If you're a recent arrival, if you've just come to this country, those are great jobs. I have talked to so many people who, if they know one thing about AOC, it's that she drove away 25,000 jobs and all the other jobs that would have come along with it. And then when I say that we're going to pay $27 billion in taxes, they think, wow, that's a lot of money for the schools that we have, for the infrastructure that we need. That they were going to build infrastructure. This was a win, and think about it if we had it right now, as we're getting over this economic crisis. And she says that unions, she was defending unions. She doesn't defend unions. AOC believes in Medicare for all. And Medicare for all is about taking health insurance away from union members who gave up salary, let me finish, who gave up salary in order to have very high quality benefits. And they would lose them under Medicare for all. So unions don't support that, and she doesn't have union support. If she did, she actually would have gotten the Working Families Party line, but she couldn't even get 15 signatures. Why? Because the unions know AOC is MIA. She didn't open a constituent services office in her district in the Bronx. She didn't come home at a time. Your constituent services office is not in the district. You have to leave the district.
Let's talk about that.
You get the final word on this so you can...
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm proud to have a constituent services right here in the Bronx. In fact, it is accessible to the Parkchester subway station. I am co-located with Assemblywoman Karines Reyes. Now, I don't know what this talk is about, in that district, not district. Perhaps she's trying to count an avenue or a line, but let me tell you, it is one of the most accessible spaces to people by public transit. And on top of that, we have invested in a 5-year lease in a community center off of Zariga Avenue. Thank you.
That's your campaign headquarters. It's a campaign headquarters.
It's being-
And you can't even tell it's when your constituent services office, you can't even tell, there's no sign. No one would even know that it's there.
We communicate this information to anyone who asks for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
How would they know where it is? They can't even find it.
Ms. Khan, the next question for you. We haven't really talked about foreign relations, and this, after all, is a congressional seat. So I'll throw a couple of possibilities out there, because this came from constituents. Asked, if you were a Congress member, what would your position be on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? And also another constituent asked, Saudi Arabia seems to be getting away with many issues that are offensive to the American public and the American way of life. What needs to be done? So we're going to try to do the range of foreign relations in just a few minutes, but Ms. Khan, you can start, and then we'll go around.
So I believe Palestine should have its own state. They have been suffering for many, many years right now. And I think that's a sad part. It's time
And let me just ask, we're running out of time, so we want to make sure, let's not be expansive this time.
I'll be very quick. So, and I think that's what I stand on, because I'm being a Muslim, but I believe in everyone and everybody should be together. Doesn't matter what race, what religion you are. I believe everyone should stand together in humanity ways. But I do believe Palestine has suffered for many, many years. They need to get their independence. Like I believe what's happening in India, the same thing what's happening in China with the refugees, what happened to the Rohingyas in Bangladesh. And I stand with them saying that they need to get their own state. And Saudi Arabia, I have to say, they have very good relationship with our administration, as everyone knows. But it's time to make sure they understand what we all stand for. And that's what I'm standing for. Equality for every religion, every person who comes through the border. And I know everyone asks me question, am I anti-Semitism? I want to just say that no, I'm not. I believe the Jewish people are my friends, and I believe they're friends. But I do believe Palestine should be independent. That's what I believe in, and that's what I stay, because that's already, I have several emails targeting me. That's what I wanted to clear. Palestine should have their own state, and I believe everyone who has any type of religion, any type of hatred, should not be absolutely given that right to give to anyone.
Thank you very much, Ms. Caruso-Cabrera.
Israel is our most important ally in the Middle East, and we must preserve that relationship. Israel shouldn't be a Democratic issue. It shouldn't be a Republican issue. It's an American issue. Israel has so many of the same values that we do when it comes to democracy, defending LGBT rights. They're at the forefront, and we need to help them with that. We need to, any policy disputes that we have with Israel over time, our relationship must transcend what any individual administration, what issue we would have that time. In terms of foreign policy, China is the biggest issue that we face at the moment. What are we going to do about the fact that they are such huge polluters, that we have come to rely on them for our pharmaceuticals, for so much of our manufacturing? It's a huge, huge issue that really became so clear during COVID, and we really have to rethink how it is that we are going to make sure that we can rely on our own production facilities instead of relying on China, which has proven to be not friendly, to be anti-democratic, to have treated Muslims so poorly, put them in concentration camps. So that's got to be at the top of the list in terms of what are our key foreign policy issues that I would take an interest in.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ocasio-Cortez.
Thank you so much. As it relates to Israel-Palestine, I believe fundamentally in human rights, and which is why I do not believe that the United States should be providing aid and support and financing the incarceration and detainment of children. I don't believe that children should be put in cages on our border, and I don't believe that they should be put in cages anywhere. I believe that we have to address the growing and bubbling human rights crisis that Palestinians are currently experiencing. That includes the fact that their ability to access clean water and medicine is quickly running out. We have to make sure that we stand up for human rights everywhere. And that goes from the families that are currently in Palestine to the right for all people to feel safe, including standing up to the concentration camps and the suppression of Muslims in China. It also means standing up to the growing specter of authoritarianism worldwide, whether it's Bolsonaro in Brazil, whether it's Modi in India. We have to make sure that human rights are preserved, and we have to make sure that, and I'm proud to have championed that role, which is a very difficult one in Washington. In Washington, there is a consensus around war, and there is a consensus that tends to drive us to more violent conflict. And we have to stand in opposition to that and do the brave thing, even if sometimes it is the lonely thing.
Thank you very much, Ms. Khan. You get the final word if you had something else to add. If not, we can move on to closing statements.
I do want to say that the production needs to come in-house too. We can't depend on any foreign country for all our production. We need to make sure some is made here. That's why we couldn't get masks. And that's a sad part. We need to make sure our country has manufacturing abilities. When we have a crisis like that, we don't need to see somewhere else. That's something that we need to change right away.
Thank you very much. Closing statements, Ms. Ocasio-Cortez. Let's take 45 seconds for each.
Of course. I thank everyone for joining us here tonight. And again, it's been the honor of my lifetime to be your Congresswoman and making sure that we do stand up. As one of the most progressive districts in the United States, I do believe that our community has a responsibility to be the tip of the spear in many ways. It requires us to be courageous. It requires us to stand up. And frankly, our community represents those who so often are left behind. I'm proud to stand up for our community in local ways and large ways, whether it's standing up for the rights of undocumented immigrants and immigrant families, to making sure that the Hutchinson River is cleaned up for our neighbors in City Island. I'm proud to have been present, I'm proud to give, and I'm humbly asking for your support on June 23rd. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Khan.
I want to thank everybody who's actually seeing from home and everyone here, to Ms. Congresswoman, to Ms. Cabrera-Caruso, and to Parkchester Times. Again, I'm Bedran Khan, who's been here for 22 years. I'm asking for everyone to come out and support. I don't have all what everyone has here. As I said, no celebrity. I'm a person from here. I walk the street, I take the trains. I have my kids who grew up here. We're all in Sunnyside, Woodside, Jackson Heights, all also Parkchester, Pelham Parkway. I'm here to give to the people. I'm here to stay. This is my home. I'll come back to my home. So please come out and vote June 23rd. I'm asking for everyone to stand up. I'm a grassroots campaign. And again, June 23rd is the most important day. We need to show that the primary election means a lot to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Caruso-Cabrera.
Thank you, everyone, for participating and listening tonight. Really appreciate it. My name is Michelle Caruso-Cabrera, and I humbly ask for your vote on June 23rd in the Democratic primary. And I hope it's become clear that what the choice is. With me, you get unity. With AOC, you get more divisiveness and polarization. With me, you get someone who will work for you. With AOC, you get someone who works on her celebrity status. With me, you have someone who will open a constituent services office day one. AOC has been MIA. I will prioritize getting you back to work as soon as it is safe. More